So our mates were gambling with some nerds, and they were talking about an old castle they have recently discovered. And they had reason to believe that the castle was filled with old artifacts that they would like to research. They slipped out that the castle belonged to a family named Bloodheart. And the mate was like, wait a second, that name seems familiar. And the fact that he didn't really know anything about his family made him a little more curious. He ends up offering the guys to give them a hand with their journey, and in return our group would get a little portion of the loot. After some discussion they came to an agreement, and they rambled about their plans. After a while the mates regrouped with the rest of the party. He told us about the castle. And after some convincing, we decided it was a great plan to go to the castle. Well, except the sharing with the nerds part. After some more discussion and intelligent planning, we nodded and placed our plan in motion. We traveled towards the castle. We calculated that if we walked in a good pace, we would be at the castle long before the other guys would come to it. At the cost that we would be pretty exhausted in the end of the day, which in turn would make us living targets at the night. The solution to that problem came in the form of our group's rocky friend. Introducing Swoomy Bloomy. Swoomy is the daughter of a powerful forest spirit who is sent to help the group find and fight the corruption that plagues this land. She isn't the sharpest spoon in the drawer, but she mostly makes up for it with her great strength and magical abilities. One of them being the power to turn into animals. So while the group was power walking to the castle, Swoomy would turn into a mouse and sleep in one of the guys' pockets. And when it was time to camp, Swoom would pop out and take the guard. Fully charged, nothing would be able to get past this amazing defense. The day went by quickly. We set camp for the night, and Swoomy got on her post. Everyone went to sleep and the night was young. Swoomy is sitting in the middle of the camp, trying to be the best night guard you could be. After being on watch for a couple of hours, she spots something out in the distance between the trees. It kind of looks like a deer? Is that a deer? I'll pet that deer. Swoomy gets up to investigate. As she gets closer, she soon realizes that that's not a deer. That's a weird person? Maybe a forest tiefling? Nah. The person quickly spots her, and before she can react, she's surrounded by 4 dudes. One of the men yelled,
"Yikes, what kind of abomination is that?"
She casually responds with, "Hello, I am Swoomy Bloomy." Sadly, she sometimes forgets that she is a 7-foot tall stone monster.
Ah, it talks.
The men throws a net over Swoomy. It was at that point Swoomy realized maybe these guys aren't so friendly after all. The men may also be part spider maybe. Probably. She decides to go back to the camp, but despite her best efforts, she isn't getting pretty far with that web over her. So she turns into a mouse and runs away. She quickly runs back to the camp. She has to tell the rest of the group about the weird deer spider things close to the camp. She enters one of her teammates' tent and tries to wake him up, but with all of the exhaustion he has gathered through the day, he isn't reacting to anything. Failing to wake him up, Swoomy comes to the logical conclusion that he's dead. The deer killed him. In a giant panic, she runs from tent to tent around the camp trying to wake everyone up, but freaking no one is getting up. And now Swoomy thinks everyone is dead. She runs over to a big tree and cries the rest of the night away. In the morning the group slowly wakes up one by one. For a moment they were wondering where Swoomy went, but it didn't take a lot of investigation before they found her at the big tree. They go up to her and ask if she is alright. She slowly turns around, and as she sees the rest of the team in good health, her tears of sorrow slowly turns into tears of joy. I mean, damn, she's filled with all of the emotions right now. She hugs them and begins to mumble something like, "I thought you were dead, I thought the deer spiders it killed you, and don't worry, it's gonna be okay. Some comforting later, they resumed their journey to the castle. They got a couple of days of traveling without any weird incidents. It began to rain. We camped next to a cliffside. The group went to bed and Swoomy took watch. It didn't look like much was going to happen this night, but after 4 boring hours, she hears some kind of weird song coming from the cliffside. She didn't really think much of it. As the song continues, she spots that one from the team has gone out of his tent. Swoomy looks at him and spots that his eyes are closed.
Oh, he's sleepwalking.
She doesn't even get to think about how to get him back in the tent before she sees a couple of harpies flying over them. It looks like we camped pretty close to a harpy nest, and they are in the middle of luring in some midnight snacks. One of the harpies swoop in and hit Swoomy. Her face ends up taking some hard damage. Swoomy gets nervous. She looks at her friend with the fear that she might actually lose him this time. Refusing to let that happen, she stands determined as the powers of the elements rushes through her, lifting her arms in the air and makes a call of lightning. With help from the stormy weather, Swoomy burns the harpies out from the sky. She also hit the nest, and some strange noises with a heavy tone of agony comes from the nest. Not wanting to take any chances, Swoomy immediately casts Call of Lightning again. The gnome snaps back to reality. He looks up to see Swoomy surrounded by fire and destruction. Swoomy, what the hell happened here? Well, you were sleepwalking, and then some birds came, so I killed them. Okay. Well, I think I'll just go back to bed now. Alright, good night. See ya. Note to self, don't piss off Swoomy. After that long night, the rest of the journey to the castle went pretty smoothly. We didn't have any more interruptions, everyone was happy. Well, until we got in the actual castle where everything went to shit. I mean, what is that? Is it collecting heads? I mean, what the hell?